sheets of water moving down rivers.
Wide and broad and deep. Oh my goodness.
Residents are being told to get ready for some wild weather.
And the tiny town was soon alight.
The past 12 months have seen some of the most extraordinary weather patterns to hit the world in decades.
And it happened so quickly.
Catastrophic floods, intense cyclone and hurricanes, freak snowstorms, devastating bushfires. It's Christmas 2010, and sea surface temperatures off Australia's east coast are higher than normal. This La Niña weather pattern is pushing high levels of moisture across the east and north of Australia, and meteorologists are monitoring the formation of a possible cyclone off far north Queensland.
Just as some people were getting ready to pack the boot, flash flooding in far north Queensland put an end to Christmas travel plans. As the Category 1 cyclone Tasha crossed the coast south of Cairns this morning, about 100 millimetres of rain fell in the space of an hour.
60 centimetres or 2 feet can wash a car off the road, so very dangerous conditions up and down the coast.
The cyclone's expected to weaken as it moves inland, but authorities say conditions remain dangerous.
Although Tasha's lifespan as a cyclone was short, the remnants clashed with a trough, causing widespread torrential rain across Queensland. At 14 metres, the Dawson River in Theodore reaches its highest peak in half a century. In Ingham, the Herbert River peaks at 12.2, and the town of Dalby was split in two as the floodwaters rushed through northern New South Wales.
Those in low-lying areas are getting ready.
Have you evacuated?
Oh yeah.
Yes, yesterday we spent all day evacuating.
The last 4 months of 2010, large amounts of rain fall over eastern and northern Australia. In Queensland alone, 107 locations record their highest December rainfalls. But the wrath of La Niña has yet to reach its full potential. Australia was not alone. Flooding from La Niña was also affecting Malaysia and the Philippines. But it was Brazil where the flooding was claiming hundreds of lives.
One human life at least is saved. Hundreds more couldn't be helped as hillsides turned into walls of mud and water.
The 24-hour period between the 11th and 12th of January became known as the worst single-day natural disaster in Brazil's history. As Brazil calculates its loss, it becomes clear the heavy La Niña rainfalls in Australia are a sign of things to come. Flooding continues to take its toll, especially on an already fragile Queensland. January 10, residents watch as a torrent of water sweeps through Toowoomba and the Lockyer Valley.
Paul, from what you've heard on the ground there in Toowoomba, just how powerful, just how devastating has this flash flooding been?
Well, I think of all the images we've seen throughout this flood crisis in Queensland, Scott, this would have to be amongst the most dramatic things that we've ever seen. I mean, there were cars literally picked up like matchsticks, swept along by the floodwaters. There were people clinging to light poles for their lives, and emergency service workers were suddenly getting calls all over the city for help. There were people stranded on top of cars. Just incredible to think that in this city that could happen, and it was right in the middle of the CBD.
How much warning did the residents and businesses get that this wall of water was headed their way?
Well, there have been warnings for the last 24 hours that this big weather system was going to hit all of southeast Queensland. But because I think this was a flash flood, nobody was prepared for this. And it happened so quickly. People were telling me that one moment the main street was fairly clear of water, and suddenly this wall of water came through, taking all before it. And minutes later, it was clear again. So I don't know how you can have warnings for a flash flood like that.
The surge of water passes through the Lockyer Valley. By the time it reaches Grantham, the height of the water is around 7 to 8 metres. Near Gatton, the Lockyer River rises to a record 18.92 metres. With barely enough time to grasp the disaster in Toowoomba, the wall of water is bearing down on Brisbane. The Wivenhoe Dam is at full capacity.
Well, the modelling shows us that both Ipswich and Brisbane will be experiencing flood levels equal or greater to the 1974 floods. So appropriate information has been provided to both of those communities, and I really do urge people who are watching and listening to take the necessary precautions now. This is a very significant and serious event, and we need people, particularly in those low-lying areas, to pay heed to the public messaging that's going out and to take appropriate action to either evacuate or to move their goods and possessions to higher ground.
It's January 11. Flooding is already affecting the low-lying areas of Brisbane. By mid-afternoon, the Brisbane River breaks its banks.
Last night, there's nothing on this road.
No water?
There's no water on the road at all. I came and spoke to all the folk here, and there's no sign of problem. Well, the thing about the Brisbane River, it's big. People forget about it. Most of our capital city is not on huge rivers. This is. And when it gets angry, it gets angry. And just look at the history books. This is not the Parramatta River, it's not the Yarra, it's not the Torrens, it's not the Swan. This has got a substantial catchment. It's wide, it's broad, it's deep.
2 days later, the Brisbane River peaks, lower than first estimated. At 4.46 metres, floodwaters still inundate 20,000 homes, and historically, it becomes about the city's 10th highest river level.
How have you fared?
I've just had a peek in the laundry door and it's probably just over a metre inside, and there's plenty of floating garbage in there, so we are very lucky compared to some. You know, we've still got all our gear upstairs, so we're very lucky compared to some. And you just think about those people in Toowoomba who had no warning.
30 kilometres west of Brisbane, the Bremer River in Ipswich is peaking at 19.4 metres. Floodwaters are covering about a third of the town, and 3,000 homes are damaged. It's still only January, and the southeast is feeling the heat. Humidity levels in Victoria are almost 100%, as low-pressure troughs drag tropical moisture from the north. Another bout of heavy rain between the 12th and 14th is enough to cause flooding to 51 communities across western and central parts of the state.
Every farm dam is full, every reservoir is full, and there are just enormous sheets of water moving down rivers, kilometres and kilometres wide.
It's the result of record rainfall from the centre across to the west and up to the state's north.
Of course, we've seen quite severe flooding in Victoria, communities right across Victoria that are facing some of the worst flooding that they've ever seen.
I was told that by the owner who'd lived here for many generations that it had never flooded.
The river's broken out and come around, and the hay's come off the paddock and smashed into the vans, and we've got a swamp on our farm that Dad talked about filling up, and the water ran uphill and run out like a rapid down the other side, and to see that volume of water, it's just been totally amazing, yeah.
Before the northern monsoonal season whips into gear, the Bureau of Meteorology predicts an above-average cyclone season. By 2011, Tasha had already unleashed copious amounts of rain in Queensland. But the devastation was still to come. Late January, severe tropical cyclone Bianca dumps heavy rain along the Kimberley coast, suspending oil and gas production and port facilities in the Pilbara region before it travels south and weakens through a colder high-pressure zone.
This is what remains in some parts of Northam and York, and little has been left untouched. A homestead, the local pub, even the Northam car yard with its roof peeled back like a can. And this is the storm that caused the destruction.
I haven't felt anything like that. My wife thought we weren't going to make it out from under there with the two kids, and just had to keep reassuring her that we were, but I honestly wasn't too sure myself.
On the other side of the country, the strain on Queensland is increasing. For over a week now, Cyclone Anthony has been veering in and out of Australian waters as a tropical low and cyclone. As the month draws to an end, Anthony makes landfall near Bowen as a Category 2.
If you're ever ordering cyclones at the Cyclone Factory, this is one you want because right category, right speed coming across, and as I said, minimal damage.
As Anthony weakens to a tropical low, a larger and more powerful storm is bearing down on Queensland.
Around the Category 3 and 4 mark, we're talking about 200 to 250 km/h wind gusts.
And it may well be one of the largest and most significant cyclones that we've ever had to deal with.
We ask people to take whatever action it is necessary to protect themselves and their loved ones.
As Yasi churns through warmer waters, it quickly intensifies. Authorities' fears turn to reality. Around 4 a.m. on the 2nd of February, Yasi was upgraded to the highest cyclone grading, a 5. The following day, one of the most powerful cyclones to ever affect Queensland's coast crosses near Mission Beach.
By midnight, you could really hear the wind outside. You could hear things getting knocked around a bit.
When we lost power, obviously we lost air conditioning, and when you've got no ventilation in the shopping centre and with so many people here, the heat built up really quickly.
By morning, Cairns had been spared the worst of Cyclone Yasi, and relieved evacuees started heading home.
I'm happy to head home. Yeah, see if I got a house.
Numbers at another centre grew by 1, with a surprise arrival, a baby girl born just as the cyclone had passed.
Her due date was actually today. Apparently the statistics are that only 10% of women deliver on her due date, so who would actually believe that that would actually happen during a cyclone?
Being a Category 5, I don't like it. It's never been experienced in Australia for a cyclone or a storm that long, let alone in other parts of the world.
And Ellen May, when you saw the results of this massive storm, what went through your mind when you emerged from the supermarket?
It's like ghost town, no one left in the street. Well, there is no town, was no town, you know what I mean? The water's been up and through it, and it's like there was no life, and we got down here through with a forward drive. We couldn't get to the house over here because it was flooded. But to see this just cross through my mind was Phuket tsunami meets New Orleans.
Like all Aussies, we just get up and keep going. You know, I'm so thankful that we haven't lost any lives. We've lost all of this, sure, but these things can be replaced. You know, life you can't replace.
Dina Leo's brick house is still standing, but was so badly damaged by the rising ocean, she may never be able to live here again.
What's made this one different compared to, say, Cyclone Larry is that where Cyclone Larry was in a fairly concentrated area, Yasi has damaged an enormous tract of North Queensland.
As we went to bed last night, we did so holding some very grave concerns about the safety of friends, family and loved ones in North Queensland and far North Queensland. It's a great relief this morning to be able to say that at this stage we still have no reports of any casualties, serious injuries or any fatalities.
It's still too early to say just how much the damage will have cost, but it will be significant. 75% of the nation's banana crop has been destroyed. The sugarcane industry is estimating the setback to be worth $500 million. Yasi will be downgraded to a tropical low sometime after daybreak, and residents as far west as Alice Springs in the Northern Territory are being told to get ready for some wild weather.
Behind Cyclone Tracy, Yasi is the second costliest to hit Australia. The core of Cyclone Yasi prior to landfall was 500 kilometres wide, and its associated activity stretched well over 2,000 kilometres. As we progress into a new month, the remnants of Cyclone Yasi are bearing down on the southeast. Although a cold front has brought relief to those in New South Wales, it's another blow to Victoria as it clashes with the system from Queensland. During the first weekend of February, Melbourne's east and southeastern suburbs accumulate the equivalent of a whole summer's rainfall.
With such heavy rainfall expected on already saturated catchments so soon after the January flood event, riverine flooding is also forecast again.
The most extreme rain falls in the state's northwest. Mildura breaks its century record with more than half the yearly total in just 2 days.
The water's coming into the car and the car was going backwards.
While most of Australia is drenched, the drought and extreme heat in southern Western Australia is creating perfect bushfire conditions in the southwest. A fire begins east of Swan Valley and it burns through nearly 3,000 acres over 2 days.
And it's threatening about 100 homes. Some have already been damaged.
It's windy, yeah.
How does that make your job harder?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
The blaze started just after 9 o'clock last night. The Fire and Emergency Services Authority says it moved swiftly through the hills. Flames were up to 3 metres high.
It's 10 days since Yazi crossed the Queensland coast, and another low is developing, this one over the top end.
There is a heightened level of anxiety around as a result of tropical cyclone Yazi. We are in no way in any comparison to what Queensland was facing.
As conditions intensify, coastal suburbs are at the most danger of flash flooding and damaging winds, and police have already begun door knocking, warning residents of the potential danger.
With heavy rain pounding the region, Darwin records its highest 24-hour rainfall.
The rainfall from Carlos was quite amazing, with 360 odd millimetres in a single day, and most of that during the night. That was a tremendous impact, and Darwin hasn't seen that sort of rainfall impact before.
Maureen Britton's home near Rapid Creek in Milner was one of 30 that flooded the night before Cyclone Carlos was declared. The creek, swollen with rain, reached across the road and into her house.
Tried to board up all the doors and put towels and sand and blocks, and then it just came over them, so we evacuated.
The speed of the event, I guess, is what made it challenging for everybody. Just moving into the situation, normal monsoon intensifying to something that was really quite out of the box.
Over the next 10 days, Carlos crosses through the northern Kimberley region, weakens as it moves back into the Indian Ocean and redevelops into a cyclone. Its speed produces a squall line generating a tornado in the town of Karratha.
This mobile phone vision was shot as a tornado swept through Karratha. The storm ripped off roofs and flung debris across the town, hampering preparations for the cyclone.
I thought we were going to die. There was pieces of sheet metal just flying past us, and just glass and all sorts just flying around.
As the rain intensifies, Barrow Island records 283 millimetres.
Carlos crossed the coast as a Category 2 system, but quickly weakened to a Category 1.
Carlos will move in a west-southwesterly direction, more or less straddling the coast as it heads towards Northwest Cape. It'll move to the west tomorrow afternoon out into the Indian Ocean, and then move in a southwesterly direction.
February 24. Carlos balloons into a severe cyclone. Fortunately, it moves back into the ocean, relieving the west coast of any more devastation. The month of March, and rain continues to fall on saturated ground. Another low-pressure system causes more flooding over Tasmania's northeast.
Rivers and streams are bursting their banks, with water cascading over roads in Scamander, Beaumaris and St Helens. There have also been landslides.
Well, I'm from Billabong Bay and I really haven't seen the rain out there so bad, and I've been there for over 20 years.
The wild weather has made driving conditions treacherous, with more than 20 accidents reported throughout the state.
From Scamander through to St Helens, there's quite a few areas with low-level flash flooding, up to 500 metres in length and 12 inches deep.
The whole way down it was raining, but as soon as I hit around Scamander, it just was crazy. It was really, really scary.
Major flooding over parts of the South River Basin peak at heights similar to May 1969. Autumn is drawing to an end, and so is one of the strongest La Niña patterns in living memory. The last time we saw such widespread flooding associated with La Niña was back in 1974. Although the 8-month cycle caused a series of floods over eastern and northern Australia, it did very little to help Western Australia's southwest, Gascoyne and Pilbara. Now in a severe drought, Perth's dams have registered their lowest inflows on record as levels drop to around 20%. By mid-year, grey skies roll over the southwest, finally unleashing much anticipated rainfalls and bringing back to life Perth's dams. With 60 millimetres in 24 hours, the city records its wettest June day in 25 years and the wettest start to winter in 6 years. As Mother Nature's clean-up and inquiries continue across Australia, The United States is battling with their own extremities. Twisters, floods, snow, drought, heat and wildfire. 12 weather disasters claiming at least 1,000 lives. As cold air filters from the north and collides with warm air pushing up from the south, storm chasers are out in force.
Oh, it's getting big.
Although tornado outbreaks were high in February and March, the frequency ramps up during April. Around 750 tornadoes are confirmed.
That is a monster tornado.
The 4-day 2011 supercell outbreak is the largest amount on record. It alone spawns 343 tornadoes.
I couldn't get up. I was having to move stuff off of me, and I got up. This is what I woke up to.
In many places, the damage to homes and businesses is nothing short of catastrophic.
They are used to twisters in America's southeast. Forecasters call it Dixie Alley.
Big tornado. Oh my God.
But the people here have never experienced an April like this.
Although May is less intense, the scenes of a devastating multi-vortex are shown around the world. May 22, late in the afternoon, it rapidly intensifies across Joplin, Missouri, 1.6 kilometres wide and the deadliest tornado to hit the United States since 1947. As storms creating tornadoes and heavy rain are sweeping across the South, Midwest and the Mississippi, copious amounts of late snow are melting. Rivers are rising and severe spring and summer flooding is affecting the towns along the Missouri and the Mississippi. As rivers rise across parts of the United States and Australia, a crisis of another nature is unfolding in Africa. A severe drought, said to be the worst in 60 years, is causing widespread hunger in the Horn of Africa. Although in Australia La Niña is known for higher rainfalls, in this region it's the opposite. The lack of precipitation over 2 seasons results in crop failure and a widespread loss of livestock. For the first time in 30 years, the United Nations declares a famine.
I've met here today people from all over southern Somalia, and there's no food where they are. And what we've heard from them, I just heard from one woman who's lost 3 of her children.
Heavy rain returns to Somalia in October, and while it brings some relief, it also damages temporary structures and increases the risk of waterborne diseases. Heat is also drying out parts of North America. Residents along the East Coast are sweltering through their hottest heat wave in 75 years. Areas of Texas battle through 70 days of 38 degrees or above. A severe drought strengthens, and as the dry heat combines with strong winds and low humidity, it sparks devastating wildfires across Texas. And the hurricane season is active. Hurricane Irene has everyone on edge.
This is a very dangerous situation. The flooding is going to be significant along many places in eastern Virginia, and it won't just be today and tomorrow.
When the water starts coming over the bulkhead, you better get out. We left then 3 or 4 hours ago.
What do you think the situation is now?
Grim. Matter of just cleaning up.
Whoa, look at that.
From the Caribbean and along the east coast as far as Canada, Hurricane Irene leaves extensive flooding and wind damage. It's also the first hurricane to make landfall over New Jersey in 108 years. Although not as severe as first thought, it does bring New York City to a complete shutdown. We've reached the end of October, and the extreme weather continues to bear down over the United States. Nicknamed Snowtober, a rare October storm dumps heavy snow across a large area of the northeast. Some areas record over 80 centimetres.
Seems a little crazy, to have snow before Halloween. It's kind of unheard of, but around in Maryland, you never know. You never know what you're going to get.
I hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. I can't even express how much I hate it. It's awful.
The same weather system travels around the world. In 3 hours, it dumps a month's worth of rain over Dublin. Heavy rain across southern Europe results in flooding across France, Italy and Ireland. 4 days later, a second wave of flooding hits Italy. The same low pressure also induces heavy rain and flooding in parts of Africa. As the rain began to ease over Australia, the monsoon season during the latter half of the year is catastrophic for Southeast Asia. Record flooding affects Thailand, Cambodia, Burma, Vietnam and Laos. And within the space of a couple of days, the Philippines is struck by 2 typhoons. In November, the waters are flowing down from Thailand's north. The capital city, Bangkok, braces for major flooding.
Central Bangkok, in theory, is safe. But here on the outskirts of the city to the north, you can see that this flooding is definitely not yet over. The problem is that just on the other side of a flood barrier here is a major industrial estate.
I cannot expect because I've been living for 54 years in Bangkok. I never seen this one before.
Although some of Bangkok's outskirts are still experiencing flooding by the end of the month, the worst of Thailand's flood crisis is over. For Southwest Australia, the year begins in severe drought. But after several heavy rain events, not only are Perth's water levels on the rise, but the extra bush growth places them in a vulnerable position for bushfires. During the last week of November, strong winds combined with the first heatwave of the season, and the raging bushfires burn over 30 homes in and around the Margaret River. As the year draws to an end, a weakened La Niña cycle is once again rearing its head as the driving force behind our weather. Moisture filters back over Australia. The Weather Bureau predicts higher summer rainfalls, but nothing like the storms of 2011.